Frederick had been the one Ford man most certain that casting a V8 engine in one piece was impossible. His fears weren't completely unfounded. Men were thrown to the job of engineering, casting, and testing the new Ford V8 blocks. For every success, there were 100 failures. Etzel's talent was in styling. This was well proven by his work with the Model A and his luxury Lincoln line. He had been pressing his father all along for a more competitive car. So his father put him in charge of styling an entirely new body to go with the lightweight V8 engine. Executing on his ideas would be veteran stylist Joe Gallam, who had designed all the Ford bodies since the first Model T. Their first clay models would be an attempt to streamline the existing Model A look with a wide lower body and a racier front end with a sweeping grille and headlights faired into the fenders. But as the design developed, the front-end treatment would follow along the more traditional lines of the company's big, elegant Lincolns. In the first week of December 1931, Henry Ford ordered all Model A passenger car production stopped. From now on, he was committing all the resources of his company to building a V8-powered replacement for his famous Model A. Until further developments, he would leave the press and the public in the dark about his V8 engine. The first prototype shows the evolution of Ford's V8 engine design. The starter was mounted above the bell housing, and the exhaust manifold wrapped around to the front. It was now January 1932. Millions had been spent, and the casting problems with the V8 engine were still not solved. Finally, production boss Charles Sorensen rolled up his sleeves and personally directed the first successful casting. From that day on, the men would call him Cast Iron Charlie. Meanwhile, the entire Ford organization was edging toward the brink of disaster. Dealers had no new cars to sell. Many were barely getting by selling parts and used cars. A lot of them went broke. In the first week of February 1932, Henry Ford broke his silence. He announced to the public that he was launching a brand new low-priced Ford V8, along with an improved four-cylinder car called the Model B. By the end of the month, men were returning to the plants to learn how to build the new cars, and the Big Rouge plant began gearing up again for production.
pins. Here's where they are inspected. In this gauge, the pin is checked for length, 2 13/16 inches. The location of the ring groove is also checked here. The diameter of the piston pins is held true within 3/10,000ths of an inch. And no pin can be off weight more than 2 grams, the 14th part of an ounce. In this room we find an inspection of the pinholes in the piston. The diameter of the holes is held to a limit of 3/10,000ths of an inch. The weight of the piston is held within 2 grams. Now here's an interesting machine which removes the overweight. A scale on the machine is set to the overweight figure. The piston is placed in position. The machine started and metal chips bored from the inside drop into a cup. When the weight of chips equals the amount to be removed, the machine automatically stops. Now for a little assembly. You have seen a set of connecting rods, pins, and pistons. This is how the pin, piston, and rod are assembled and checked for alignment. And these assemblies are then carefully weighed and matched in sets. Flywheels are statically and dynamically balanced. On this machine, the operator determines the amount of unbalance in the flywheel, drills out the necessary metal to bring it into balance, and then gives it a final check. The limit is 2/10ths of an inch ounce. Split valve guides are made in perfect half circles, making them interchangeable. Here the halves are being lapped and gauged to bring them in half circles. Cylinder blocks coming from the foundry go to the big milling machines. In this one, the surface of the cylinder bank is milled. First a rough cut and then a finish cut. And the surface must be true flat within a limit of 5/1000ths of an inch. We move to the motors building again and to the assembly line. Assembly of parts into the block begins here. Valves are ground and are properly seated. The crankshaft is assembled in the block. Pistons and connecting rods are assembled. Rings are fitted on the pistons. Connecting rods from opposite cylinders are attached to the same crank pin throw and oscillated in special floating double area bushings. Valve chamber cover plate with manifold integral and cylinder heads are soon assembled. Next comes the oil pan. Then the transmission and the clutch are attached. The completely assembled engine comes off the line and moves on to the dynamometer department where it is tested.
As the frame with axles attached arrived at the right place on the line, the engine was lowered in. Running changes would be constant as the year progressed. The earliest engines had a 2-blade fan and a cast aluminum oil pan. Later ones had a 4-blade fan for better cooling. On March 31st, 1932, 3 weeks after the first one came off the line, the new Ford V8 was at last unveiled to the public. The company's official introduction of the long-awaited cars was at the big Highland Park showroom on Woodward Avenue in Detroit. Many Americans were out of work because of the deepening depression. Yet nearly 6 million of them across the nation turned out to see the cars in the first 2 days of their introduction. The beautiful styling of the new 1932 Ford V8 was a big hit with critics and the public alike. Yet the 8-cylinder engine was the subject of hot debate among skeptics. Some contended that twice the cylinders of Henry Ford's old 4 meant twice the gas consumption. Others feared that the pistons, fired at an angle like the Ford V8's, would wear out on the bottom side. In San Francisco, the cars made their debut at the Civic Auditorium. Here, too, the new Fords with their compact V8 engines were the talk of the town. After 30 years, Henry Ford had at last built an automobile, not just for utility, but with the engineering, ride, and beauty that customers were now demanding.
Let us enjoy the beauty of the details for a moment. The front has an impressive distinctiveness, a richness of design. The single-bar chromium-plated bumpers have been designed for good appearance and stability. A double corrugation provides strength, and the design is such as to minimize possibility of locking bumpers with another car when parking. Front license plate brackets are on the front tubular crossmember of the frame. The license plate is easily visible, but it neither mars the beauty of the front, nor does it interfere with the airflow to the radiator. Headlamps have been designed to harmonize pleasingly with the lines of the car. To ensure permanent brightness, the headlamp shells are of rustless steel. There is further attractiveness in the outward curving lenses. Cowl lamps give a touch of smartness to the deluxe cars. Individuality of the new Ford car is expressed in the beautifully designed V radiator shell, which is finished in the same color as the car. Its appearance is further enhanced by the grille, which is finished in a French gray color and set off by a rustless steel molding. The top hood hinge is entirely concealed by a rustless steel molding, a bright strip which gives the car a spirit of dash and speed. There is good appearance in the windshield, which is set at a 10-degree angle in a frame with concealed hinges. And here's an outstanding feature. All the new deluxe cars have safety glass throughout as standard equipment. Windshields in the other cars are of safety glass, but these cars can be fully equipped with it at a small additional cost. Window openings are designed to provide full vision, yet they blend pleasingly with the lines of the car. And the gracefully curved back reflects a spirit of fleetness, a final emphasis to the beauty of the car itself. Now we introduce a few of the body types. First, the two-door sedan. Now the deluxe two-door sedan. Here is the four-door sedan. And this, the deluxe four-door sedan. All wonderful closed cars for the family. The Victoria, another beautiful car. Now for the young folk, the Roadster. And look at this, the deluxe Roadster. Another open type, the Phaeton. Here's the deluxe Phaeton with curtains up and with curtains off. For the man who wants an individual car, the coupe.
In May, the company opened a new plant in Seattle, Washington. It was the first with an assembly line designed specially for the new V8. Enthusiasm was high and the speakers eloquent at the opening ceremonies. Company officials and local dignitaries looked beyond current troubles and the Great National Depression. They spoke of the wonderful opportunities that lay ahead to sell cars and build the Seattle economy. Unfortunately, the Pacific Northwest was hit harder than most with the calamity of unemployment. Ford production was based on buyers' orders. In the entire month of May 1932, only 250 cars were ordered by dealers for all of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and the territory of Alaska. Still, expectations were high as Ford officials took VIPs on a tour of the plant in a pair of its classy products, a fancy open Phaeton and a sporty Roadster model. Little would the plant manager know, as he proudly pointed out features of his state-of-the-art facility, that come November, its doors would close forever, another victim of the Depression. In many parts of the country, hard cash had all but disappeared.
What's the idea for running that light?
No, officer, I didn't run that light. That light changed when I was right in the middle of the street.
Well, that light changed when you was a half block down the street.
Oh, no, it didn't.
Oh, yes, it did.
No,
I'll
I
have to
don't
order
think
you
it
in
did.
court for it because we're taking care of fellas for running these red lights. What's the name?
Collins.
What's the first name?
Roy H.
Roy H. All right, sir. I'll have to order you in court, and it probably will cost you some potatoes.
Well?
Because that's what we're finding these fellas. What's your number, please?
367-585.
All right, sir. Bring this bag in tomorrow and bring some potatoes with you because it'll probably cost you plenty of them.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Honorable City Court of the City of Marion, Indiana is now in session. Lloyd E. Moore, charged with reckless driving. Stand up here, please. This man is charged with reckless driving. You drove through a funeral procession.
Yes, sir.
You know better than that.
Yes, sir.
Are you guilty or not guilty of the charge?
Guilty?
Guilty. Well, we've been fining in potatoes. Have you got any potatoes?
No, I haven't.
The usual fine for this is 10 bushel of potatoes. What have you got if you haven't got any potatoes?
Chicken. Give you some flour, some chickens, I haven't got any potatoes.
You haven't. All right, then. You bring in a sack of flour and 2 chickens. All right. You got them here?
Yeah.
All right, bring them in. All right, Mr. Moore, we're going to excuse you this time. But be very careful and avoid doing this again. All right, you may go now.
It was a long, slow summer for the automobile business. Ford dealers had 2 engines to sell and the most exciting styling in the low-price field. And yet, it was growing harder to get customers to come in for a look. Still, life went on. People had to have new cars. By July, a new trend had been established. The V8s were now the most popular Fords and were outselling the 4-cylinder Model Bs 3-1. Easily the best-selling open Ford for the year was the sporty deluxe V8 Roadster. The price was $500, and it came with a rumble seat, folding windshield, genuine leather seats, and a full set of tools. To make the sale, the dealer was more than happy to throw in a full tank of gas and a complimentary servicing after it was broken in. The best-selling Ford for 1932 was the two-door sedan. For the price, it was the top choice among young families, businessmen, and traveling salesmen. From the day Henry Ford and his men watched that first V8, a Victoria model, coming together somewhat awkwardly on the assembly line, many of the production problems had been worked out. For the price, the cars were as good in fit and finish as anything on the market. The passenger bodies were built by Ford and two of its longtime suppliers, Briggs and Murray. The bodies arrived on the main assembly line from overhead storage and were lowered onto a chassis as it arrived on the line below. It took 11 men to line up the body and a system of teamwork to quickly attach all the parts and bolt it down. Henry Ford was fussy about the workmanship, and the men were required to use fender protectors and fill out inspection tags. Fitting the hood was one of the last assembly operations before the car rolled off the line. On the 32 Ford model, it was found that one man could do it better than two. The men had to be versatile. Trucks were built on the same line right along with the cars. Finished Fords were checked into the delivery yard where they were held for dealers to pick up or for shipment out by truck, rail, or ship. In May, the company opened a new plant in Seattle, Washington. It was the first with an assembly line designed specially for the new V8. Enthusiasm was high and the speakers eloquent at the opening ceremonies. Company officials and local dignitaries looked beyond current troubles and the Great National Depression. They spoke of the wonderful opportunities that lay ahead to sell cars and build the Seattle economy. Unfortunately, the Pacific Northwest was hit harder than most with the calamity of unemployment. Ford production was based on buyers' orders. In the entire month of May 1932, only 250 cars were ordered by dealers for all of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and the territory of Alaska. Still, expectations were high as Ford officials took VIPs on a tour of the plant in a pair of its classy products, a fancy open Phaeton and a sporty Roadster model. Little would the plant manager know, as he proudly pointed out features of his state-of-the-art facility, that come November, its doors would close forever, another victim of the Depression. In many parts of the country, hard cash had all but disappeared.
What's the idea for running that light?
No, officer, I didn't run that light. That light changed when I was right in the middle of the street.
Well, that light changed when you was a half block down the street.
Oh, no, it didn't.
Oh, yes, it did.
No, I don't think it did.
For it because we're taking care of fellas for running these red lights. What's the name?
Collins.
What's the first name?
Roy H.
Roy H. All right, sir. I'll have to order you in court. And it probably will cost you some potatoes.
Well,
Because that's what we're finding these fellows. What's your number, please?
367-585.
All right, sir. Bring this bag in tomorrow and bring some potatoes with you because it'll probably cost you plenty of them.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Honorable City Court of the City of Marion, Indiana is now in session. Lloyd E. Moore, charged with reckless driving. Stand up here, please.
This man is charged with reckless driving.
You drove through a funeral procession.
Yes, sir.
You know better than that.
Yes,
Are you guilty or not guilty of the charge?
Guilty?
Guilty. Well, we've been fining in potatoes. Have you got any potatoes?
No, I haven't.
The fine, the usual fine for this is 10 bushel of potatoes. What have you got if you haven't got any potatoes? You can
Give you some flour, some chickens, and potatoes.
have it. All right, then. You bring in a sack of flour and 2 chickens. All right. You got them here?
Yeah.
All right, bring them in. All right, Mr. Moore, we're going to excuse you this time. But be very careful and avoid doing this again. All right, you may go now.
It was a long, slow summer for the automobile business. Ford dealers had 2 engines to sell and the most exciting styling in the low-price field. And yet, it was growing harder to get customers to come in for a look. Still, life went on. People had to have new cars. By July, a new trend had been established. The V8s were now the most popular Fords and were outselling the 4-cylinder Model Bs 3-1. Easily the best-selling open Ford for the year was the sporty deluxe V8 Roadster. The price was $500, and it came with a rumble seat, folding windshield, genuine leather seats, and a full set of tools. To make the sale, the dealer was more than happy to throw in a full tank of gas and a complimentary servicing after it was broken in. The best-selling Ford for 1932 was the 2-door sedan. For the price, it was the top choice among young families, businessmen, and traveling salesmen. For many who bought some of those earliest Ford V8s, however, real trouble lay ahead. Soon, owners began complaining about excessive oil use. Then, dealers were getting cars back from customers with worn-out engines. Some of the V8 engine blocks had pinholes from bad casting, and nearly all of them suffered from a faulty pan design that caused the oil to surge away from the lubricating points on hard turns. Ford dealers had to repair or replace many engines, while the company worked hard to counter the bad publicity. It was decided to sponsor a new Ford V8 on an endurance run through California's hot Mojave Desert. The run would feature veteran race car driver Eddie Pullen and start with all the incidental publicity and official good wishes at the desert town of Rosamond, California. The starting date was the 6th of June, 1932. Co-sponsor was Pennzoil Motor Oil. The car was a stock 1932 Ford Victoria model. It was Pullen's job to prove to the automotive world that the Ford could take it, that its quick V8 engine could stand up to the worst kind of punishment under the worst kind of conditions. Timed by Western Union and running at all-out speeds, he would circle the desert course for the next 33 days, 1,000 miles a day, around the clock. Pullen and his relief drivers would spell each other in 4-hour shifts, stopping only for fuel and water and sometimes a little oil. Pullen's Desert Dash was a big event for the mining town along the route. There was no use complaining about the heat, though. It was just another nice day out here in the Mojave. Mile after mile, Pullen drove the Ford Victoria, switching drivers often. In all, 155 different drivers would take a turn at the wheel. Driving through the desert heat, day and night for over a month, the car finally finished the highly publicized endurance run back at Rosamond. But the stunt was more than a publicity story reported nationwide. The car Henry Ford had bet his whole fortune on, with an engine they said couldn't be built. It would go down in history not only as an automotive milestone, but as the car that saved the company from its competition and made the Flathead V8 engine synonymous with the name Ford for the next 2 decades. For the money, the fastest car in America. It had everything: youthful styling, durability, economy, and an appeal that would make it the most popular car ever to hot rod. The 1932 Ford opened a whole new chapter in the romance of the automobile that continues to this day.